Hi, welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name. Glad to have you join the program. 888-589-8840. 888-589-8840 is the number to call if you would like to join the program. We've talked about a range of topics in this program today. We talked about this, what I believe to be an honest-to-goodness angelic visitation, this angel showing up at a traffic accident site to pray for a woman who was in desperate shape. Immediately, things begin to turn around. Looks like she is going to experience a full recovery. Fascinating about ordinary people and the power of a prayer that's energized by the Holy Spirit. Doesn't have to do with the kind of people we are. It has to do with the kind of God we serve. We talked about the No Fun League. Talked about the NFL banning any kind of celebrations of a touchdown or a first down or whatever. Can't even do a military salute. Can't do nothing. The No Fun League slate saying, hey, we're not going to call them the Washington Redskins anymore because that's dated, it's tacky, it's offensive. And yet you think, well, why would a franchise pick a mascot? I mean, think of the other mascots that you have in the NFL. You have the Detroit Lions. Why do they pick lions? Because they're powerful. They are the king of the jungle. You have the Jacksonville Jaguars. Why do they pick the Jaguars? Because they are strong, because they are fierce, because they are fast. You pick the Miami Dolphins. Wait a minute, forget that. But anyway, why do NFL teams pick mascots? Well, because they have certain attributes that they want to be reflected in their football team. You think Redskins, what are they? Why did they pick Redskins? Because it symbolizes a warrior spirit, symbolizes somebody who is willing to go to battle, somebody who's willing to be bold, somebody who is willing to be courageous, somebody who is willing to take on the adversary in defense of their family and their tribe. So all of the reasons why you would pick that as your mascot are very positive. But Slate, I don't know what they're going to refer to them from now on. They're not going to call them the Redskins anymore. Talked about the fact that President Obama coming down like a falling safe on sexual assault in the military, and perhaps oblivious to the fact that really what he was doing was committing himself to bringing the hammer down on homosexuals, because they are the majority of the perpetrators of sexual assault in the military are now homosexuals. He seemed to be completely oblivious to the fact that that's what he was pledging himself to do. Bob McGinnis talking about women in combat, how that's going to weaken the military, the disastrous consequences, deadly consequences for putting women in combat positions. So any of those topics you want to talk about, we've visited today. Glad to have you weigh on it. Let's go to Diane in Victoria, Texas. Diane, Victoria, Texas, welcome to Focal Point. What's on your mind? 888-589-8840, by the way. Go ahead, Diane. What's on your mind?
About the sexual assault in the military?
Yes, go right ahead. What are you thinking?
Well, yeah, I'm just thinking that it's not a lot of the homosexuals on the homosexuals and homosexual and heterosexual. It's the other way around. Because, I mean, the homosexuals are a small majority of the population.
Correct.
In the military and, in the United States and everything. And I'm thinking that, with the ban on don't ask, don't tell, there's a lot of resentment, They're getting all these special privileges and, they're marching in parades in their uniforms and stuff. And it's just, and the men, they don't want that. They don't want that type of environment. And they don't want women in combat, doing all those kinds of things like that that's made for males to do. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So I'm not sure what you're suggesting, Diane. Are you suggesting that these sexual assaults are actually heterosexual males that are assaulting homosexual males because they don't want them in the military?
Yeah. I mean, it's a thing of power, just like in prison. They have their population of gay people there, but it's all about power and resentment and stuff, It's so
wow. Well, I don't know, Diana. I don't think I'm going to be able to agree with you on that one. It's kind of an intriguing theory. I mean, that's just kind of a stunner to me that, I don't think the average heterosexual male is going to think about doing something like that. I mean, they're just not going to, they're not going to compromise their own understanding, their own sexuality just in order to get even with somebody else. I'm just not seeing that.
No, that's not what I'm saying. But like if you're flaunting it around and stuff like that,
Yeah, but see, we're not talking here about physical assault. I mean, I could see that happening if a homosexual soldier was kind of flaunting and making a point of it and being obnoxious about his homosexuality, I could see him getting punched out or restrained or something like that. That's physical assault. What we're talking about here is sexual assault, not just physical assault, but sexual assault. What you're saying, I mean, that's believable because they could antagonize and could wind up getting punched out for their trouble. But that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about sexual assault. And Diane, you made an interesting observation, and I'll let you go. Thank you for the call. But Diane, made an interesting observation that homosexuals comprise a very tiny percentage of the population, including in the military. There may be 3% of the population. Now think about this just for a minute. So let's assume, I don't know what the rules are. The percentage of homosexuals in the military could actually be higher than 3% since we've thrown out the rainbow welcome mat for them. It could be higher than 3% in the military. But let's just say that their proportion in the military is the same as it is in the culture at large. You have 3% of the members of the military that are committing 53% of the sexual assault crimes. 3% of the military committing 53% of the sexual assaults. All right, let's go to Dee in Mayaca City, Florida. Dee, welcome. What's on your mind?
Actually, two things. I'll comment on what that Diane was just talking about. I understand your point, but consider it from this angle. The supposedly straight men sexually attacking homosexual men, not physically with their own privates, but with objects. Kind of like when that reporter over there was attacked. They didn't rape her with their bodies; they raped her with objects.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that would be possible. Yeah, that could happen. Yeah,
because they could say, "Oh, that's the way you want to be. Well, we'll help show you how to be that way."
Yeah, and you get that kind of in certain hazing settings where that will be done. Everybody in those cases, everybody's heterosexual, and that's how they're either hazing or showing their dominance or whatever. All right, Dee, you had another thought?
Has anybody considered, I'm thinking in the military upper echelon, that all these things that President Obama is endorsing, i.e. the homosexuals in the military, and this big scuffle over women not being allowed to fight, or trying to put women into combat, is what I'm trying to say. Have they considered the fact that this might be his indirect way of destroying the military instead of direct destruction of the military?
Well, that's an interesting point, Dee, and I made that exact point in a column that I wrote about a week and a half ago, that this is a part of President Obama's deliberate. I believe it's deliberate on his part. You have all these things coming together at one time: women in combat, gays in the military, Christians being driven out of the military, budgets being cut back. You have all of these things that are converging at the same time. Air Force can't retain pilots. I mean, if you were deliberately going to set out to destroy the military, if that was your strategy, that was your purpose, that was your plan, this is exactly how you would go about it to do it without making it look like that's what you were doing.
And it's a lot more, and thus being a lot more acceptable by society, because we're all so sensitive about these special groups and, let's not violate their rights and don't, just rather than saying, well, we're just going to cut back the money. He's doing this subtle, indirect.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, Dee, and I think you're exactly right. And thank you for the call. I think that if this all was strung out over an extended period of time, you could say, well, it's just kind of an unfortunate confluence of events, but this is all happening boom, 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 and it's all happening since President Obama was inaugurated in 2009. Let's go to Alex in Richmond, Virginia. Alex, welcome to Focal Point. What's on your mind?
Hello, sir. How are you doing today?
Doing good. How are you?
Doing well, thank you. I wanted to make a short comment on the sexual assaults in the military, and I just wanted to ask, have you considered the possibility that perhaps there may be a vast amount of homosexual assaults in the military that are not necessarily committed by homosexuals, but by straight men that are under a vast amount of sexual tension, alpha male gameplay, and perhaps a sort of odd or sick game? How might we know that they are actually being committed by homosexuals themselves? Have they admitted to it?
Well, I appreciate the call, Alex. And again, maybe we're not going to know all of the details there. And you do have a thing called institutional homosexuality. It happens in a prison setting a lot where there are no options. There are no female options. But I don't think that's a very likely explanation in this situation, Alex. Number one, you got women in the military now all over the place. And where these bases are located, it's not like these guys are not going to have options to procure female companionship. So that one, I think, would be a pretty unlikely possibility. And even Slate magazine, this is uber left. They're in the tank for the homosexual agenda. They say that the majority of rapes in the military are homosexual in nature. Last call of the hour. Let's go to Carl in Loden, Oklahoma. Carl, welcome. What's on your mind?
Yes, sir. I'm a white guy, and I'm married to a full-blooded Indian, and I asked her what she thought about, the having, the Indians, as a football team.
Yeah.
And she said she didn't have any problem with it. And I wonder if they're going to change it all up, why don't they ask an Indian how they feel?
Well, and that's a good point, and I appreciate the call, Carl. And, I graduated from a school. Stanford was the Stanford Indians until the time I graduated. They changed to the Cardinal, which is a color. It's not even a thing, in 1974. But all through my time there, they were the Stanford Indians. And it was a bunch of whites that started this movement to get the mascot changed. And the bulk of the protests came from Indian tribes in the state of California saying, we don't want you to change the name. We're honored to have our tribe associated with an institution of higher learning. There was a full-blooded Huron Indian named Chief Lightfoot. He came out and did a war dance before every game with his tomahawk and the headdress, all part of the pageantry. People loved it. And his tribe was vociferously opposed because they now lost their opportunity to be a part of the Stanford football tradition. But the white elites, the ones that want to tell us how to live, that always know best, they had different ideas. Focal Point, AFR Talk, back after the news.